Hello, this is Scott, WU20, and today we're going to discuss the new MIDI features in the upcoming version of OpenHPSDR, PowerSDR mRX PS version 3.3.7. As you may be aware, Andrew, Mike Zero Yankee Golf Golf, has developed some very important and powerful new MIDI control features for PowerSDR. And these control features will allow you to use any MIDI controller. You can even use multiple MIDI controllers at the same time. And it even starts to provide some control over button lighting on the MIDI controller. The one downside to this whole moving forward process is that it will require everyone to remap their controllers. So if you have one of the Hercules controllers, you're going to have to map it all over again. This video will show you how to do that. As you can see, I've got my Hercules controller down there in the bottom right corner, and we're running the software here in the background. The first thing you need to do is go up to Setup, of course, and go to Cat Control, and you'll see there's a new button here, Configure MIDI. Press Configure MIDI, and the new, more sophisticated MIDI controller setup panel will initialize and appear. And you can see here, I actually have two controllers available to me. I have a very, very cool user configurable controller that runs on either an Android or an iPad. It's called TouchOS. But we're going to look at the Hercules controller here today, since that's probably what everybody's going to be worried about. I want to click on that tab to bring that to the focus. And you can see there's some instructions here, and they're pretty easy to understand. The first thing we're going to map is the VFO-A wheel. So to do that, when you're in this view here on the Map Controls tab, you simply move the wheel. Make sure to move it through its entire range, because the software is automatically mapping the maximum values and the minimum values and the control ID for the control you're touching. So you need to move the control through its entire range of motion. Now you can give the control a name. It could be any name you want. It could be, if you haven't used a label maker on your Hercules controller yet, it could be something like fast forward or rewind or whatever. For example, I can name this left large control wheel. And then you need to tell the software what kind of control it is. Is it a button, a knob, or a slider, or a wheel? And of course, in this case, it's a wheel. And now we're going to assign it to one of the many available commands. In this case, change frequency VFO-A. Click Done. Click Save. All right, and now it should work. So let's test that out. And there you go. You can see passband moving around on the waterfall there, just the way it's supposed to. Let's map a different kind of control. Going back to Setup, Cat Control, Configure MIDI. We've got to let the setup controller initialize again. And we'll select the Hercules controller. That will probably be the only controller available to you unless you have more than one like I do. So let's touch another control here. Let's touch this slider. All right, move it all the way down to the bottom, all the way to the top. And do it a few times just to make sure. And you can see that it's got the min value of 0, the max value of 127. Control ID is 57. Right? Label that right slider. Control type is going to be slider. And let's assign this to mRX1 AGC level. Again, click Done. Click Save, and let's see if that works. And it does. There's the gain changing, and the gain line is moving up and down on the pan adapter just the way it's supposed to. Next up, let's program a knob. Now you don't have to open and close this whole mess every time you do a single control. You can program all the controls in one shot. I'm just doing it to show you that it's working right away. So now let's use this knob here. Turn it all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom. Okay. Make sure that it's detected the min and max values. Let's label that squelch level. Control type is going to be a knob. And we'll select squelch. Done. Save. Okay. And let's test it out. And there you go. It's moving around just the way you'd expect right here. Squelch control. Very good. All right. And now for a button. So we'll select again the DJ controller. We'll select the button here. Just push the button. And push it a few times. Why not? And let's, since we programmed squelch, let's program a button for the squelch on and off. Call it squelch on and off. It's going to be a button. Find squelch on off on the list. There are a phenomenal number of commands to choose from. Here it is. Done. Save. Okay. And we'll look down here. And there you go. Turning it on and off right there. Works like a charm. Now let me show you one of the amazing new features here, which is the ability to utilize button lighting. Going back into the setup. And we'll select that controller. And I'll push the squelch button. And that automatically takes me back to the mapping where you could edit it right here or change it. You'll see that there's something here called Show Advanced Options. Click that. Now there's a whole bunch of instructions up here, but you really do need to know something about your MIDI controller in order to program the lighting. You do have to know what the right commands are for your MIDI controller. So you may need to go get the MIDI controller specification or the MIDI controller documentation to do this. However, I happen to know that on the Hercules series controllers, that if you send back to the button the same channel and status control ID command that the button sent, then it will turn on and off just by setting the corrective value. So let me show you how that works. So you can see that Andrew set things up here to automatically fill in some of that information without you even having to know it, because most controllers work this way. So we're just going to type in SSYY, and those are variables. Those just automatically send back the correct status and control ID value as received from the button. And we're going to type in a value of 7F. That will turn the light on the button on when the button has been pressed and instantiated whatever cat command that is. We're turning it off. We're going to use a value of 00. You'll note that these are hex values, hexadecimal values. So don't get too confused between hexadecimal and decimal. You can't break it, but it might not work. So let's click Done and Save. Let's see what happens here. See if I've done this properly. Turn the squelch on and look at that. That button is lit up. Turn the squelch off and the button is no longer illuminated. Now there is one limitation here so far, and that is if I turn on the squelch here in the GUI with the mouse, you can see I've just done, the button will not light up. So it's one-way communications right now. The MIDI controller is not sent any messages to update its state to match the state of the software, but it's getting there. Still an amazing new feature. Very cool. All right, so let's say you've mapped the controller now, and you've spent the quality 20 minutes it takes to do that, and you want to save this out and perhaps send it to somebody else so that they don't have to do that. Well, Azure has provided import and export capabilities for the new MIDI mapping system. And for example, we can select our DJ controller here, our Hercules controller, and go to Manage Mapping, say Export. And I want to export the mapping for the Hercules here. If you had more than one controller or more than one mapping, you could export a whole bunch of them into a single file. We'll click Done, and we'll just say Test Export as the name of the export file. And we'll click Save, and then you could go grab that file and email it to someone, and they could import it. Let me demonstrate an import. Now, I've done some extensive mapping of this controller previously. Import mappings. And let's see, I will choose this one right here. And I want to pull out the DJ Control MP3 Hercules controller mapping. And now I go up to Manage Mappings and I say Load Mapping. I'll select that, load, and there you go. Save. Okay. Now I've just loaded a whole bunch of mapping. So you can see that you've got all kinds of things that this can do. For example, filter width, and of course the VFO control. I've also done quite a bit of work on button lighting. And one of the things I've done is I've programmed this button up here in the corner to be the start or power button. When I do start this up, it lights up a bunch of buttons for me. These are buttons that are just momentary buttons that have no state information. Got button lighting, for example, on squelch on and off, monitor on and off. You can also do some other fun things. Here's some mode buttons. This is sideband. And you'll note that when I push the AM button below it, sideband button goes off and the AM button turns on. CW, sideband. So I'll be making another video where I can show you how to use more of the advanced lighting features, show you just exactly how to program that. Be aware that on the Hercules series controllers, there are 8 buttons that do not light up. So if you can't get them to light up, it's not your fault. It's these 2 buttons here, and these 2 buttons here, these other 2 in the middle, and these matching 2 over here on the side. There's 8 buttons that do not have lighting capability on the Hercules controller. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and that this is helping you in reprogramming your Hercules controllers when the new software comes out. This is Scott, WU2073.